The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the country. It's Mark from SolidCAM. We'll be starting our 30-minute free training session today. With me, as always, is Kevin Rankel. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, how's it going?
So, wanted to follow up with something that we mentioned yesterday. Kevin had mentioned that we were working on a unique application for a customer where they wanted to be able to do splines on a mill turn machine. And I had created a part previously, and I found it, so here it is. And essentially, all this is using the broaching toolpath from our toolbox cycles on a mill turn machine, and then how we would simulate that with the tool being basically mounted on a turret. So there's a couple of things that are in this one file that we've seen through SolidCAM Live, through KevCam, and some of the tips and tricks videos. One is the use of the toolbox cycles. So let's take a look at the toolbox cycle real quick. So in the toolbox cycles, you get any one of these features that is kind of a bare bones version of our pocket profile toolpath and some unique functionality. In this case, the unique functionality is the keyway or the broaching. So in the broaching toolpath, all you're choosing is a line that represents the broach. In this case, let's say that one wall right there. My tool, I've actually defined it. If we take a look at the representation of the tool here, the yellow kind of looks like an insert that I've defined there, but really all I've done is I've defined it as a broaching tool, but with the dimensions that make it pretty much just square. So that's what I've done there. So it's essentially just a broaching tool, but I made it the size of an insert. Okay, so that should represent, and again, from that tool picture, you can see that I've added, again, another thing from our video series, an STL holder. So I've added an STL holder that I modeled up myself, very basic looking, but I made it look like as if it was some sort of a turning tool holding an insert. And this is simply so that we could do something like broaching, keyway creation, milling on a mill turn machine, basically the way it looks here. Okay. So this is all just purely visual, but you can do your simulations. You can take a look at how this thing would be machined using these kind of modifications. So this is kind of all the stuff that we've talked about over the years, over the videos, all in one kind of video, just to kind of get specifically what we're looking for. So the rest of this is the same toolbox cycle broaching toolpath that you saw recently in the KevCam videos and what we've done previously before. So in the toolbox cycle broaching, you just choose your levels. In this case, I chose the front of the part and the back wall of the broach. And under technologies where you see the specific parameters of this toolpath. In this case, it's just literally just which side of that chain I'd like to be on. So if I chose this wall right here, I'm looking to be on the left side of it. Now, left side as in basically this direction. So if that's the chain right there, I'm on the left side of it. And then my step over essentially is just my step into the part. Extension if I wanted to extend outside the chain, and then my retraction. Now all of that is going to look like, let's just get this back into kind of our mill turn view here. It's going to look like that, and you can also see that I've added my fourth axis indexing to this as well. So my fourth axis transform is added to that. So not only am I broaching or making a keyway on the front there, on the top side, so there's my machining, my retraction, reposition to get my next cut. And again, another thing we talked about very recently is the color coding of our wireframes. So again, you can see that I have some color coding in my wireframe representing the rapid movements, the material engagement, the red ball where we start from. Pretty much everything we've talked about is lining up in this one file. So with my fourth axis indexing, I basically have told it to do the keyway and then repeat it as many times as they're on this part. So this is not a spline toolpath, but using a combination of all the functionality, I have created a spline creating toolpath. Make sense? Okay.
Let's show that in Solid Verify, see what it looks like.
Yep. So simulate, Solid Verify. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm having graphical issues like we saw yesterday, but when I do my Solid Verify, I don't see the STL holder. But you can see my little broaching tool that I made look like an insert. And when we play through this, I get my spline. If I slow that down, we'll see my keyway being cut. And I'll just make that half speed so we can see all that being done. Okay.
Now, there's a question that came in about the exit. Well, okay, so Sultan is saying that as Mark's going down, right when it stops, it comes out in the positive direction, so it steps out right there. It'd be a great impact between tool and piece. Well, it's usually on something like this, you would have an open side, but what we can do is, I guess I haven't tried this, but since we're doing SolidCAM live here, if we could do an arc out at the bottom.
Yeah. I was going to mention that this is very similar to what you once talked about. I don't remember what it was when we were talking about broaching, but most blind broaches like this would have some sort of not flat wall on the back. It'd be like a relief or something. But yeah, absolutely. But in the broaching toolpath, pretty much the assumption is that it's open. So I don't think that would really be I don't know if this is included here, but let's see. Approach is the same as retract, advanced, motion control. I don't know if there is the ability to arc out.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
But this actually this brings up what we talked about yesterday with the manual turning, because if this is a turning tool, or literally it's just a tool mounted in my turret, and I define it with a certain reference point, I can get it to follow whatever chain geometry I'd like in my turning toolpath. So this broaching toolpath would require a change to your post. You would actually have to output something or some sort of recognition in the post would have to recognize the use of a broaching toolpath and lock the spindle. So you can use a turning toolpath to just go in a straight line. Now this might require a lot of post modification. So you'll have to check with your post writer to see if it's even possible to do that with your machine. But if you were literally just typing out code, you would have the ability to tell it to not spin and then to just move in a straight line. So broaching is literally just moving in a straight line. So you could define your tool, and then you can use the manual turning toolpath to follow the exact trajectory of your tool. And in that case, you can get your arc out, you can get your kind of diagonal movement out. Every movement by the machine is controlled somehow either by a toolpath or by, let's say, an MCO. You can get that to output certain code just by hand typing it and plugging in. So there is a way to do what you're looking to do. It's just a level of complexity, either a post modification, an MCO, or some sort of combination of all the different things you can do in these toolpaths. There's always a way to do something. The best way to address some of these is to contact us on the main tech line. We'll put you in contact either with your post writer or with one of us, and then we'll get to that higher level complexity functionality of the software, but nothing's impossible. I say that, but I know for sure someone's going to come in with a unique application, and then they're going to say, "Oh, Mark said it was possible." But
Mark said it. It wasn't Kevin.
Mark said it. We can control things with geometry. That's at base level. Remember that your geometry drives the majority of the things you do inside SolidCAM. So it would be some work, but it definitely can be looked into. Let's say that.
And with this entire broaching operation here, I mean, like Mark said, usually you have a relief or an open on the end. On this particular case, it's closed off. And maybe Selton, do you ever have a part where it's blind like that? Because I guess what we could do is tell the developer to add a arc in there as like in like the profile operation and the link section, so you can actually arc out. But I guess I've never run across where we have a blind spline like this being shown right here. Usually there's a relief on there of some sort.
Yeah. Or what was it you mentioned last time? Was maybe the tool itself has some ability to address that, like the
yeah, the relief, the chip relief of it, or the chip breaker.
Well, let's take a look at this from the beginning, because that part that we did yesterday actually did have a keyway in it, and we didn't do that. So let's take a look at that part. Now, while I'm opening up this part, if anyone has any questions or anything like that, like we always say, like Stellian did today, if you have a question or a topic you'd like to have it covered, absolutely put it into the questions panel and we can cover that. I'm just picking up with some of the threads that we left off in the previous videos, but absolutely, if you have questions that are pressing today or questions on what you see on screen right now, absolutely put them into the question panel and we can answer them right now. Okay, so this is a part that, it's the same part. Actually, it's not the exact same one we were looking at, but it's already set up with the models there. And you can see there's an example of the section target generation. This is actually for a video that I tried to create, hasn't been posted yet. And let's actually add that keyway. So we'll go to Setup, Add Milling Operation, because remember the toolbox cycles are under the milling toolpaths. Top left corner, we'll choose our keyway. Z-axis is our tool axis, so my macro in position 1 for my turning doubles as my milling toolpath as long as I'm doing stuff on the face. So we'll click on New Geometry. This time again, we'll choose as my geometry the wall of the keyway. Now there are some contours in there. That's going to be basically probably created by the shape of the tool. So in terms of the geometry, I'm just choosing the wall. So green check mark, there it is. Let's go to Tool. And I don't know how wide this keyway is, but I'm just going to generate a tool. Let's see. Well, just for simplicity, let's just go with the size that we have there. Okay. Levels. Every time you're in a milling toolpath, you can see that it says by top of target, top of stock. And again, in my Z-axis, my top of target is probably where I want to start. So that's one level of associativity. It's to the target definition, or I could just highlight that 0, click on that face, and it'll start from that face as well. The difference is one starts from the target definition and one is literally from that face that I chose. So if we go back to the original model and make a change in the size of the model, the locations of any kind of faces, this toolpath will always start at that face. And for the depth, well, it looks like it goes all the way through. So I'll click on the back side of the part. Now, if that's even possible, yeah, probably not, but we'll see. Let's go to Technology. And like we just saw, we'll go through this list here. So I chose the chain on that side of the wall. I'm going to go tool side left. We can use the same step over, make it equal step over. Extension. Let's see how the extension works. Let's put a 50 thou extension on that. And then my retract, we'll leave it as constant. And then approach, we'll leave that undone like we did before. Save and calculate. And looks like based off the shape of my tool, I actually probably didn't have to do that much. Let's do this. Let's take this off. So you can see that some of it is not equal, and then the extension, let's put that back to 0. Let's do a quick host CAD on that. Oh, because the tool is probably not mounted correctly. So because we're in the mill turn module, you always want to make sure that your tools are mounted correctly. And I think with this, I think with this particular post, it doesn't give me the ability to angle the tool in any way. That might be why I'm having that issue.
Yeah, it's exactly the way.
Yeah. I don't have the ability to tell it to flip.
What if we switch over to like a SD20Y or something?
If we have that, let's see.
There, FT, yeah. or SL
SD20Y.
SL20.
There it is. Okay. So I guess this has its own machine sim. Perfect. Okay. So let's see.
And Z positive is what we're looking for.
Let's put it at Z positive. Okay, so hopefully that looks like it's mounted correctly. Same calculate. Let's do host CAD.
Try to solid verify.
There it is. Okay.
Yep.
So for whatever reason, the host CAD doesn't like the different mountings, but we can see that if I turn on my just my target, and there it is.
Now, out of curiosity, since we're doing live, let's try something real quick. Maybe on that spline one that you had pulled up before.
Yep.
What if on the geometry we draw an arc out as part of the geometry? You know what I mean?
The geometry for the toolbox cycle is just going to be that one line. So when you say draw an arc out, what are you referring to?
Okay, so go ahead and pull up that geometry for that.
Yeah.
All right. No, never mind. I was thinking if the arrow was going the other way, what we could do is do that straight line and then add just like a little tangent arc at the end.
It doesn't receive anything other than just the straight line.
Straight line, yeah.
So like the previous example, because it had those fillets on it, it's not like I could choose those fillets. It wouldn't follow that shape. It just does a toolpath that looks like that.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
So in the actual toolpath itself, there's no options for it, but like Kevin said, the feature request is probably already in, but we can put it in now, where it would generate a little bit of a move at the end to either arc out or do a diagonal or whatever it is, if that's even possible. Turn that off, Okay.
Sorry.
We've got some time left.
I was just sorry. Curiosity was getting to me. I'm like, oh, I wonder if we draw that line out, but yeah.
Yeah. It's day 2 of the messed up SolidCAM Live videos. So we actually did get a question before we came in from Brian. I think Brian's in attendance, and it's relating to essentially just cutter compensation or a way to introduce a type of compensation when you're doing the HSM toolpath. We've talked about HSM recently, and I think we made mention that there's nothing in here for compensation. Let me choose a tool to start here. Okay, so let me just add milling tool, something like that. Okay, so under passes, HSM is already a finishing toolpath, so there really isn't anything in here to add compensation. If you go through here, I don't think there's anything that says compensation. So what you're basically doing is in your tool, you're defining the height, the diameter on your machine controller, and rather than coming back to SolidCAM and changing the dimensions of the tool, recalculating, reposting, sending the code back out either through your network or on a USB, or rather than having, let's say, Shop Floor Editor, if you weren't aware, there's a product that we sell called Shop Floor Editor, which allows you to install a bare bones version of SolidCAM on another computer that you keep close to the machine or on the shop floor that doesn't have any access to SolidWorks. It's just pure SolidCAM, and then there you can go in there and change certain dimensions, certain parameters, and that sort of thing. But outside all that, let's say you just wanted the ability to, on the fly, on the controller, very similar to wear comp or diameter comp, just type in a new diameter for your tool. Well, every time you define a tool in an operation, you have this little section right here where you can check the box, and instead of defining just D1 and H1, you can define whatever size you want, change this number, and then in this one operation, this will output with a different call out in the G code. So my recommendation would be to do this. So then in this one operation, if you're looking to have the ability to add some sort of modification to the diameter, rather than going and changing the diameter for use of the first tool throughout the G code, for this one operation, you can change it to, let's say, D11, and then on the machine, define a D11 or a D21, 31, whatever you want to call it, and then you can actually add in a different diameter for the same tool in your turret or in your carousel, whatever you want to call it. So that gives you the ability to kind of modify on the machine side. It's not fully cutter comp, diameter comp, or anything like that. You're actually literally just defining another diameter, but it gives you the ability to kind of add a little bit of a modifier.
Now, if you're running HSS, you guys go ahead and open up an HSS operation, Mark. You do get the option to do compensation inside there, and you can do it based off of, go down to toolpath parameters and modify. You can do it off of tip or tool center. So if you want to switch it back and forth that way, you do have that option in there. And I think that's kind of what you're looking for there, Brian. He was asking about if it's off the center line, and how does it kind of do it? So I think.
Well, I always thought this right here was to do with the tip of the ball, not necessarily any kind of compensation. See, tool center versus tool tip. That's the center of the ball.
Yep, but it's adding in the compensation. So maybe when Brian's running a part and he wants to make that slot maybe a little bit, maybe that slot needs to go a little bit deeper, he can tell his machine, just like running tool comp. So you can put that in as a wear comp, and it will be based off of either the tip or the diameter, or center, sorry.
Okay.
So can I help out, Brian? As well as if you guys use the SolidCAM 3D milling, there is compensation in there also. So HSS and 3D milling are going to be your ones that do have 3D tool compensation. Brian, if you could send Mark or myself a part, we won't show it on the live, but then maybe we could set up a quick little call going over that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime we're trying to answer a question in this 30-minute format, if we need a longer explanation, or literally you can't really just type it out in an email, you always have the direct training available to you. You can always give us a call or send me an email with the email that we'll give you at the end of today's session, and we can get into a personalized training session where you will speak with us over the phone. You don't always have to do email or text. There are training options that we have where you can literally get into a training session with us in a GoToMeeting, but actually speak over the phone. And that way we can go live with your questions. And that's one-on-one as well. Speaking of that, we're actually near the end of the session. So the email that I'm referring to, Kevin's going to put in the chat section. And you can use that email to send us your questions, topics. Like Kevin said, if you have parts you don't mind us showing on the YouTube channel, you can send us those parts as well. We can start fresh on those parts or cover any kind of issues you had with toolpaths you've already applied to those parts. That same email you can use to get on this training schedule. So like I said, we can do personalized training with you directly over the phone and using GoToMeeting. So all you got to do is just send me a request for a day and time that you'd like, put you on the training schedule. You can have training directly with me, Kevin, or any of the guys on the tech team, and we can personalize it to your parts, personalize it to your questions. Doesn't always have to be in this live format. If you know anyone that can benefit from SolidCAM, give them our contact info or give their contact info to us. And if it gets into a demo, you get that, I guess it's $100 gift Visa card or whatever it is, just for getting them into a demo with us. If it goes to sale, you get 20% of that sale. So that could be a good chunk of money depending on what you're selling. We'll be continuing these until the end of the month. So if you have any topics, questions, or anything like that, use the email to send it to me. We'll continue with any kind of questions that have come up. We build a list, and then we'll definitely get to your question before the end of the month. Obviously, we like to make sure we answer the questions live as they come in. But if you have anything we haven't covered today or anything you'd like to see going forward, use the email, send it to us. But for today, we'll end it here. Stay safe, keep your family safe, keep busy. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right, have a good one, guys.